Imagine a place where what you throw away, broken computers, old cell phones, tangled cables, isn't garbage but gold. A country that has discovered how to turn tons of electronic waste into billions of dollars, creating an underground economy that few know about. Have you ever wondered where the cell phone you discarded 10 years ago went? What if I told you that in some parts of the world, that pile of abandoned devices is worth more than entire gold mines? But how did an entire country manage to specialize in turning digital waste into wealth? How did mountains of electronic waste from various nations become the foundation of a lucrative and, at the same time, controversial industry? This is the surprising story of how technology discarded by some was converted into treasure for others. Get ready to discover one of the most curious chapters in the world economy. And before we continue, be sure to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss more intriguing stories like this. It all begins with a paradox of the modern world. The more technologically advanced we become, the faster devices become obsolete. Computers, televisions, cell phones all have increasingly shorter lifespans. The result? Millions of tons of electronic waste produced each year. To give you an idea, the UN estimates that the world discards more than 50 million tons of e-waste annually. And most of this is not treated in developed countries, but sent to destinations where labor is cheap and environmental regulations are fragile. This is where China comes in, especially the city of Guiyou, which for decades was considered the world capital of electronic waste. Since the 1980s, containers overflowing with broken devices began arriving at Chinese ports, coming from Europe, the United States, and even Brazil. While the West saw scrap, Chinese families saw opportunity. Guiyou became a true outdoor laboratory. Thousands of workers, men, women, and even children, dismantled computers piece by piece, burned cables to extract copper, and submerged motherboards in acids to separate the gold from the circuits. What seemed primitive hit a powerful logic. A single discarded computer can contain up to 1 gram of gold, 20 grams of copper, and small amounts of silver and palladium. Multiply that by millions, and the waste transforms into an urban mine. This practice not only supported entire families, but also gave rise to a billion-dollar trade. It is estimated that at its peak, Guiyou received about 1.5 million tons of electronic waste per year, fueling a network of traders who resold the precious metals to global electronics industries. The scene was chaotic, streets covered by piles of keyboards and monitors, toxic smoke in the air, and rivers contaminated with lead and mercury. But for those who lived there, this was the modern gold. The country that once imported technology now profited from dismantling it, recycling metals, and reselling them back to the West. E-waste wasn't just an environmental problem, it was an international business. And China realized that, beyond cheap labor, it had something even more valuable: the capacity to process on an industrial scale what the rest of the world preferred to ignore. Over time, the wealth brought by e-waste caught the attention not only of traders, but also of the Chinese government. The practice, initially informal, evolved into a strategic sector. Companies began to replace rudimentary methods with more advanced recycling technologies, reducing some of the environmental damage. Guiyou was just the beginning. Other Chinese regions specialized in this type of recycling, and the country became a global leader in e-waste processing. It is estimated that over 70% of all the world's electronic waste has passed through China at some point. This avalanche of waste gave the country an unexpected advantage: cheap and continuous access to rare metals essential for modern industry. Copper, gold, silver, palladium, all these metals are crucial for manufacturing smartphones, electric cars, and even satellites. While other countries relied on expensive and destructive mining, China recycled tons of these materials from the scrap that arrived from abroad. The economic impact was enormous. The electronic recycling industry moves billions of dollars, creates jobs, and strengthens internal production chains. But there was also an invisible cost: the health of the population. Studies showed that residents of Guiyou had high rates of respiratory diseases, heavy metal contamination, and even neurological problems in children. This paradox, wealth built on toxic waste, became one of the biggest environmental dilemmas of the 21st century. International pressure grew, and China itself, concerned about its global image, began to limit the import of e-waste starting in 2017, forcing other countries to deal with their own problem. However, the seed had been planted. What once seemed like a clandestine trade transformed into a global recycling reference. Today, Chinese companies dominate technologies for extracting precious metals from waste, and the country still reaps the benefits of the experience gained in previous decades. What once seemed as dirt turned into one of the gears of China's economic rise. While other nations discarded without thinking, China built unexpected wealth, a true globalized urban mine. The story of the country that grew rich selling electronic waste is, at once, fascinating and unsettling. It illustrates how the logic of global capitalism can turn problems into opportunities, but also how this transformation exacts its toll. China saw the hidden value in what the world deemed disposable. Mountains of broken computers and old cell phones became raw material for the growth of a powerhouse. And, in a certain sense, this is a powerful metaphor. In every crisis, there is a hidden resource waiting to be exploited. But the lesson goes beyond economics. It compels us to reflect on the social and environmental costs of progress. Electronic waste carries toxins that contaminate soil, rivers, and people. The wealth built in Guiyou came hand in hand with a generation marked by disease. It is a reminder that there is no away when we talk about waste. Everything we discard somewhere on the planet eventually finds its way back to us, directly or indirectly. Today, the race to recycle e-waste continues, but with a new face. Tech companies are investing in cleaner, more efficient processes while governments seek to reduce environmental impact. The challenge is to balance profit with responsibility. For us, spectators of this story, the provocation remains. When you upgrade your cell phone, where does it go? Will it end up in an urban mine on the other side of the world? Or will we, in the future, learn to value what we have, producing less waste and recycling more equitably? China's case shows us that even what seems useless can be transformed into wealth. But it also reminds us that every choice has consequences. Perhaps the real question is, how much are we willing to pay for the price of our own consumption? And now, I want to hear from you. What surprised you the most in this story? Leave your comment below, subscribe to the Enriching World channel, and turn on the bell to not miss our next investigations into economics, history, and curiosities that have shaped the world. And if you enjoyed this video, I recommend you also watch our analysis on the country that adopted Bitcoin as its official currency. I'm sure you will be even more surprised.